Mom, Dad, there's no way that I can express to you what I'm feeling right now. My heart is full to bursting, except to say, I'm the king of the world!
Hello and welcome back to Cameron, King of the World, the third and final of the three Cameron directed/co-directed documentaries focusing on deep sea exploration, Aliens of the Deep. This was released on the 28th of January 2005 and was a co-production between Walden Media and Walt Disney Pictures, funnily enough. And this was another one that was, 3D IMAX, and I just saw the regular 2D version, kind of the Joe Average 2D version on Disney Plus, actually. So it was kind of fun to watch this one through Disney Plus, but I was kind of really dreading this one for some reason. I just felt like it wasn't going to be anywhere near as interesting as the previous two films because I have an inherent interest in shipwrecks. Not that I'm an enthusiast or I seek those things out, but I do get fascinated by the idea of shipwrecks. There is just a haunting beauty and horror to those things, the shipwrecks. I don't know what it is about them I get drawn to. There's kind of this fascination, this kind of morbid curiosity. I don't know what it is, but for me, I get drawn into shipwrecks. And Aliens of the Deep is not about a shipwreck. It's another film where Cameron goes down underneath the ocean in submersible vehicles, but it has nothing to do with any shipwrecks. It's just about alien life out there in the universe and how what we have on Earth, under the ocean, deep under the ocean, could possibly relate to that. And I wasn't sure whether that was a good enough concept to hold an entire movie, so I kind of put this one off, and I finally watched it, and I actually really enjoyed it. I definitely think, it's kind of the weaker of the three, if we're looking at Expedition Bismarck, Ghosts of the Abyss, and then, this one, Aliens of... It's kind of funny how we have Ghosts of the Abyss and Aliens of the Deep, two of his movie titles, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I just felt like... I enjoy those more, but I think that Aliens of the Deep is shot the best, which makes sense because it took place after the other two, and they're constantly, and Cameron is always about pushing the boundaries and constantly trying to do better than the film he did before. And in terms of these documentaries, the camera equipment, and how they're capturing this footage underwater. So what Cameron did was, it was another expedition from the Russian ship, the Keldysh, and there are, I think, 10 sites around the world in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. And they're basically investigating and studying hypothermal or hydrothermal vents at the kind of the ocean bed. So they're going deep down underneath the ocean and looking at these hydrothermal vents, which are basically where the Earth's core and all of that heat is releasing itself into the ocean, peeking through these little tiny things where it just kind of spews this really boiling hot water out into the ocean, and how these little creatures and fish, and I forget some of the names of them. It's not really fish. There are fish down there, but these like crabs, like crabs and all these different types of life forms, and they're just they're huddling around this boiling hot water, and they should be getting burnt to a crisp, but they've adapted, and they live amongst that supercharged heat. And so what it's looking at is the idea that, life needs the sun, photosynthesis. But these creatures don't see the sun ever. They're completely unaware of the sun. And their life comes from the heat down there through these hydrothermal vents. And I think they called it chemosynthesis, perhaps, or something similar. And I wish I could retain all of the scientific knowledge that was being imparted throughout the film, but there's only so much I can remember. But what Cameron has done is he's brought together a group of scientists to do these dives, but not just regular kind of, ocean scientists or marine scientists, I don't know what you would call them exactly, but also people who work in astrophysics, and I think there's an astronaut among them, and people who their job is studying space and space exploration and that kind of thing. So I don't know their exact titles, and whether astrophysics is really astrobiologist, I don't know. But all these people who are both experts in what's down below, but also the people who are experts in what's out there, or what is potentially out there. And so it's looking at what we have on Earth and how that relates to potential life forms on other planets. And in particular, they do hone in on one of the larger moons of Jupiter, Europa, which is, that's kind of a moon of Jupiter that's been focused on in science fiction and movies, because there is that kind of possibility there. It's this ice moon, and so there's speculation that there is an ocean beneath the ice. I mean, it stands to reason, right? And so what is in that water? Is there life? Are there alien life forms out there? And there's a funny moment where Cameron's talking to one of the scientists, and they're kind of discussing what could potentially be in Europa, and the guy's saying, look, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to find micro again, I forget the terms, but kind of micro organisms, kind of microbes, I don't know, just tiny microscopic life. And Cameron's like, yeah, but that's not interesting. Cameron's like, I want to see something, like something impressive. Like, Cameron's imagination and kind of his passion for deep sea exploration, but also for space, and that next frontier, and always looking for something more, and trying to find out more about our place in the world through life on another planet. I love his passion for that. And they do talk about Mars and potential water on Mars and the rover missions, and it's actually a lot more fascinating than I thought it would be. And what makes this one really cool is the submersibles they use. And I'm assuming they didn't dive anywhere near as deep as they did in the shipwreck documentaries, because they have the 2 submersibles from those expeditions, but they have these 2 new ones that are like little bubbles. So it's like a big glass bubble, so the people sitting inside them get this incredible view. Like the other 2 submersibles, they're like kind of crouched down on their side, trying to squeeze their head through a porthole to see the Titanic and stuff. But this is like a big sphere. Imagine the fucking things in Jurassic World, the little balls that they roll around. It's similar to that. It's just like a whole kind of almost 360-degree view. And so just seeing those looked cool. And then you see all of this life deep down in the ocean, and it's breathtaking at times. Some of the stuff that they see, including this big, the only way I can describe it is a jellyfish, but it's like this, it doesn't look like a jellyfish, it looks like a sheet of glowing bioluminescent kind of beauty. Like, it looks like something out of Avatar, And I almost wonder if that was, I know that Cameron had been interested in bioluminescence before that, but it almost makes you think that was a partial inspiration for what he would do a few years later with Avatar. But that jellyfish was like this big blanket of kind of bluish glowing, light that's just captivating. And then like this fish that is like one of the ugliest things you'll ever see in your entire life. But all these little weird things growing on the sides of it, and it's just absolutely fascinating. This is one structure that's like a mirror. It's like this weird, almost like stalactite that grows out and spews out like a mushroom, but there's like a glass, it almost looks like a glass reflective surface on the bottom. So there's all this weird stuff they find down there, and it's just fascinating. And also it's fascinating seeing the people that he works with and all the scientists who come in, and some of them have different personalities and stuff, and it's fun to see the interactions and the sense of a crew getting together and doing something. It doesn't have the sense of danger that the other 2 films have, or the sense of reverence of the historical nature of what they're doing. And that's kind of been replaced in this film with such a enthusiasm and passion for what we can do later, and of what we have now, like an appreciation of, holy shit, how amazing. Like, they're down there in these submersibles, and this one woman's like, I feel like I'm on another planet. It looks like something completely alien. And they do actually go, they kind of go a step maybe too far at the very end, where it's kind of this simulated moment at the very end where you have 2 of the scientists inside the submersible bubble, and they look out and you just see this whole alien like city under the water. That's the ending of the movie, spoilers. And it's kind of like, oh, that's cute, doesn't really exist, it's not really the point. But I guess what they're getting at is that anything's possible. Who knows? And that there's a fun in imagining the most outlandish version of what is out there. And I like that. I like the conversation of what is out there in the universe. And I do think that, some of the stuff that we have on this planet that a lot of people don't explore is wild and crazy. I mean, you watch some of those like Planet Earth documentaries, the David Attenborough stuff, and these weird animals are just like, what the fuck is that? How did that happen? And if that can happen here, then what the fuck can happen out there? There's just so many variables, and it's a much bigger idea. I mean, you look at the first two documentaries; they're just about how did this ship sink, or why did this ship sink, and let's see what's been preserved and what's not. It's very simple and straightforward. This one is dealing with so much bigger ideas, but ultimately it doesn't have the kind of singular goal as those two shipwreck documentaries. So for me, it wasn't as quite enjoyable. But there is a breathtaking moment in this documentary where it's like a view of the Earth in CGI, and we just zoom into the ocean, and we see from afar, we see the big, like, the trench, one of the trenches of the the seabed in the Earth, and then we kind of see like a ship on the surface, and we see the trench below, and then the camera comes in, and it goes all the way down to the bottom of and it was just like, I kind of just went like, oh. And Connie just was laughing. I was like, what? And she's like, you just went, oh. I didn't even realize it. I was just like, they put it in such a cool perspective to me, to see it from, bird's eye view of the Earth. Not that a bird could live in space, but you get the idea. And we just slowly pan in, and you get the whole kind of spatial awareness of how vast the ocean is, how deep the ocean is, and how much has been unexplored. And yeah, it's just really cool. I really enjoyed all that stuff, and it was just an enjoyable film. And I think with the other two, I would want to rewatch them more. This one, maybe not as much, but I definitely would like to see this one again, because it's just a really interesting film. And, I feel like in another life, I would have loved to have been into science. When I was a kid, I was absolutely fascinated with the planets, with the solar system, with space, to the point where I almost felt like I wanted to be an astronaut. And it's kind of the typical thing when you're a kid. I want to be an astronaut when I grow up because it's cool. But I was really like all in on like space and the planets, and I loved all that stuff, the universe. But I know I'm not smart enough for that shit, But I almost feel like I almost wish I was, and that was my life, because it's just so fascinating. But then, the cynical part of my brain thinks that, what is it all for? What do you really learn? Which is a horrible thing to say, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where I feel like personally, deep down, we're never going to discover anything out there. Not that I think it doesn't exist, but I just don't think we can really fully develop technology to get far enough and quick enough to discover it. We will always be held back by the limitations of man. And I can't remember if it was mentioned in this documentary or something else I watched, or was talking to someone about something, but this idea that, life forms from other planets are never going to really connect up with each other, because by the time the technology that is developed by those life forms on different planets is achieved to reach the other life form, by that point, the society and the life forms are already destroying each other. And that is the cycle that is going to be there for all things. And I think I really agree with that. I can't remember where it came from. It might have been the documentary, it might have been something completely different, but I completely agree. I think that any civilization and society that becomes that intelligent is going to eventually destroy itself before it works together in harmony, and everyone is a great scientist and develops a way to travel at the speed of light, or whatever it happens to be. But in the case of Europa, it's like that kind of tantalizing thing where it is possible to get there. I mean, obviously with drones and stuff, I don't think that a manned mission to Europa is possible. I think that the conditions would be pretty much, it would be a complete waste of time. With Mars, it's a completely different story. But, just the thought that you feasibly could get to Europa and land on there, it's possible. You'd probably die straight away, but there's something tantalizing about that. So the possibility of life in the solar system, I think it's highly likely, but again, we are probably in kind of the microbes, arena, which Cameron's, again, was like, that's not very interesting. But I love it. I love Cameron's passion. And, he, at this point, he is like, I think, a resident explorer. Like, that's his job title with National Geographic. If not at this point, it's certainly a few years ago. So, he's earned his stripes, and that's one thing that's really interesting throughout these three films, is that he didn't just, say, okay, I'm the director and I'm going to make Titanic and I'm going to be there when you film the footage of the Titanic. Okay, the big Hollywood director comes in. But, he's gone back, and he's done and yeah, it's for films and stuff, but he's putting in the hours. There's a lot of work that goes into projects like this, and by all accounts, he's really doing a lot of that work, and it really feels like for that time period between 2001 2003, and then making and finishing off this documentary, it's a good like 3-4 years of his life working on these 3 documentaries. And around 2005, that's really when Avatar started to really go into heavy, serious pre-production. So that was kind of the cut. It's an interesting kind of cut-off point where he did Titanic, and a few things maybe might have happened here and there, and then he geared up to do these deep sea exploration expeditions, and that kind of took up a few years of his life, and it wasn't something he never returned to. In fact, we'll talk about another James Cameron deep sea exploration film later on in the series, not one that he directed, but one that he heavily stars in, actually. And that's a really interesting one, so stay tuned for that. But if you've enjoyed any of the kind of comments I've had on these past 3 documentaries, but I would recommend all 3 of them. I think they're really interesting in their own ways, and there is this overarching sense of cohesiveness to all 3. They make a nice trilogy of documentaries, I think, and it's like the wonders of the sea in many different forms, in terms of natural life, in terms of the stuff that humans have left behind, and in terms of the kind of the impact that humans have left. I think that some of the life forms that were found, like right now at the bottom of the ocean, like in the Mariana Trench, they discovered, and I think this wasn't even in the documentaries, it's just me looking into it on my own, but I think right down in the lowest depths of the ocean that we know of, and that's I can't imagine there being depths that are unknown or uncharted. It's not like the known universe, but the deepest point of the ocean, which is about, I think, 39,000, no, not 30, I think it's about 37,000 feet. The Mariana Trench and the Challenger Deep, the deepest point. I think that it might not have been there, but there was some study of animals, life forms deep in the ocean, like as deep as you can get, pretty much. And there was traces of plastic in their system, So like, you think they might be safe all the way down at the bottom of the fucking ocean, but no, there's plastic. And I think even like a candy wrapper was found at the bottom of the, like, it's just, so there's lots. There's the wonder of nature, and there's the shit that we've left behind in terms of the shipwrecks and the plastic and all that shit, and no doubt radiation and God knows what else. But yeah, but this film, it's a nice kind of counterpoint to maybe the more downbeat elements of the previous 2 films, and that this is more of a fun kind of celebratory, like, isn't the world awesome? At least for those of us who choose to view it in that way, and isn't the possibility of what we can do awesome? And that's ultimately a good message to end these 3 films on, I think, and to also end this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.